In this tutorial, we're going to unpack the magic of star args in Python. Args is a special syntax in Python that lets us pass an undefined number of arguments into a function. This means that there can be any number of arguments passed in. For example, the print statement can receive any number of arguments. If you enter multiple things, like hello, separated by commas, it will print them all separated by spaces, and I could do as many of these as I wanted. And as you can see, it just does them all. There isn't a limit to how many arguments you can pass in. This is a prime example of args. To put args into context, let's first do a quick recap of how functions work. So if you remember, a function is a reusable piece of code, so we define it using the def keyword followed by the function name, parentheses, and then a colon. Inside these parentheses, we can typically specify our function parameters. So, for example, we can set name here, and we will just do an f-string formatting, hello, name. And you've seen this example in the previous videos. So in this example, the greet function just has one parameter, name. When we call this function, we provide an argument for that parameter. So if I say greet world, it'll say hello world. So how does args fit into this picture? It allows a function to accept more arguments than the number of formal parameters we have declared. So this means that we can call the function with any number of arguments, including 0. So when you use this star, the parameter doesn't have to be called args, so it's typically called args, but it doesn't have to. And it stands for arguments, but just like normal parameters, you can call it whatever you want, so I can call this names. But just remember that if you want the function to be able to have an undefined amount of arguments, you have to put the star in front of it. And also, it's good to note that it's conventional to say args, but for this example, I'm going to do names to make it more easy for you to understand. So here we have, we'll define greet star names, and so for every name in names, so this will iterate through names, since there's a possibility of infinite arguments really, the star names parameter will end up being a tuple. So we can iterate through that with a for loop. So for every name in names, we'll print f-string formatting, hello, and then the name. So name is equal to the current item in the tuple names. Here we'll just say, we can say world, and we can add another one, John, and then these two names from the previous example, John and Alice, and it'll do it 3 times because we entered 3 of these, and so for every name in names, it did this. And we didn't specify anywhere in here how many arguments it would take. We can have as many of these as we wanted, and it wouldn't even care. So as you can see, args, or star names, enables our function to handle any number of arguments gracefully. So usually you'll actually just see args, like I said, because it's conventional, and it would just look like this, and it does the exact same thing. It's just whenever you see args, that's what it means. It stands for arguments, so it's just for every name in all the arguments they passed in, then it's like that. And so I tried to explain this first by using names, and now I'm explaining it by using arguments. Because sometimes, at first, people are confused by what args actually means. And so I figured that if I explained it with names first, then it would make more sense, because it's for every name in names. And the user or programmer can just enter as many as they want. So we could even do this with a calculator. So if you remember our previous video where we made a whole calculator, we expected the user to enter 2, and there was no way to figure out how many they would enter, so we had to just make it only 2. But now we can actually do something like define add, and we'll do star numbers for this example, or you can do args, and we're going to have a variable here, a local variable called answer, and that can be set to 0 at the start, and then for every number in numbers, so for every item in this tuple, we will just add answer by number. And so if we return this, we can return answer. We can just print the value of add, and then 1, 2, 6, and 1 maybe. So this would equal 10, and if we ran this, it would say 10. And we never specified how many arguments. We could go even further. We can do 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, as many as we wanted, and it would add them all up for us, and it would work completely fine. And so this is how we would actually fix that program and make it work better. So why use args? As you've seen, it provides flexibility. With args, our functions become more dynamic and adaptable. This can be incredibly powerful, especially when we don't know ahead of time how many arguments a function needs to accept. Args can be used in combination with regular function parameters as well. When using both, we must put the star args after the normal parameters to avoid a syntax error. So let's go back to our greet example. We'll define greet, and we'll have a greeting, so they can choose if it says hello or good morning or whatever, and then we can just do args. And so for every name in args, we will print the fstring formatting of greeting. So there's only going to be one greeting. We're not having infinite arguments for greeting and args. So we'll just print the greeting and then print the name. And now we can greet with the greeting. So we have to specify the greeting first, because if we just did John, Alice, and Paul, for example, right? If we did this, it would say John, Alice, John, Paul. It would think that there's only two names because John is the greeting. So we have to make sure that we're actually specifying the greeting. And so we'll do hello. And so this is the greeting because it's first. So as I said, Python knows the order. So since hello is first, it knows that that's the greeting. And now when we run this, we actually just get hello John, hello Alice, and hello Paul, because it's greeting and then all the arguments. So here greeting is a regular parameter, and args is the args parameter. So in this function, only one greeting can be used at once. So you can only have one star parameter or args parameter per function. Because if you tried to do multiple, you would get a syntax error, but the reason for this is because if you had multiple greetings, Python wouldn't know which arguments are for greetings and which ones are for args. So we're only allowed to have one of these. So when we call this function, the first argument is used for the greeting parameter, and the rest are passed as arguments to args. That's why you have to have args last, because Python will not know which one. And so it can see, okay, well, if we had another parameter called x, it would know that this is greeting, this is x, and all the rest are for args.